Ah, I was muted. I was muted. Alright, we're gonna have a good time, chat. We're gonna have a grand old time. No one's gonna stop us. Everything's gonna be just fine. I don't know why you all are complaining. It's a beautiful day to be alive. It's a beautiful day to be alive. It's a beautiful day to not die. It's a beautiful day to be alive. Robert Dopey is in the building, man. I don't have to try to be alive. I don't have to die to be alive. I am alive already. I am alive already. Okay. Alrighty. Oh. Mm. 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 We are human beings. Tell me to be free. Yo, what's up, Rage? How you doing, man? What's going on, man? What is going on, Rage? You trying to play, buddy? Oh, no, you're at work. My fault. My fault. Yeah, I'm trying. The killer can't pick you up. I know it's all fun and games until the killer actually picks me up. I'm using Unbreakable instead of Exponential because I don't like looking for totems. Totems is not my thing. I know you love totems, Rage, but I for one, hate those damn totems unless I have a perk to find them. It would have worked better if I had Unbreakable last time. You know, things just happen. It's consistent, 35%. What can possibly go wrong? Oh, yeah. Totems. Totems are great. I love totems. Let me ask Peaches if she wants to. There is DBD. Okay. I don't know if she wants to. Whatever. Probably doesn't after what we were talking about last time. uh, 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 uh. Boy, you know what? You know what I'm gonna do? This is a big brain play. This is a... Sometimes totems are easy to see, but some are really hard to see. Yeah, some are... It's not the problem that they're easy to see or hard to see. It's just the problem of finding them. I mean, I can usually find one or two, but... each map, but yeah, I don't want to go looking for it. You know, I'm going to use Instead of boil over, because I get no value of it, no value of boil over, I'm going to use the boon exponential instead of boil over, and then I get 134% faster. Yeah. So, hey Rach, so you got any tips for me to grow my YouTube channel? I'm doing the shorts, I'm doing the TikToks, posting highlights. Maybe I need to make a character. What do you think, Rach? What is it? What do you suggest? What do the viewers like to see? Okay. Yo, what's good, Peaches? What's good? Oh, what's good? I'll be there after book club. Damn, I didn't even know book club. Where is book club? Yo, what's up?
Yo, what up? We're doing book club. It's that Coraline.
Ah, Coraline. You know what? I might have to join you for that.
Yeah, we're doing it in Antonio. Cousin Jerry said he had something come up at school, so he's gonna finish our reading.
Damn it!
It's so good, Tyler and Jenny. No. Yo, what up, Antonio? You wanna do some PvP with around the juice after book club?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do it. Let me put on the Coraline song first.
Wait.
Oh, this is perfect.
The Juicer?
What?
His last name's the Juicer?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
That's wild.
Oh.
Wow, that's crazy.
Oh my goodness, I can't. Oh, it's so hard to play a mouse and keyboard. Oh no.
Alright, let me pull up these books. I'm gonna turn that music down.
Oh, so you got a soundtrack.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I got it. No.
Where's my TDF here?
You've been warned. My internet's been going in and out.
Has it been in and out? Damn, brother.
How long is the read for Coraline?
You have an internet issue to the store?
The Coraline, the entire book guy, you think you could probably read it in, what, 2 hours, honey?
Yeah, we'll finish it within the hour.
This is great. This is exciting.
I was looking through my PDF viewer that I used last time because it worked really well. I should have gotten this ready before I started, you know, but here we go.
Don't worry, it's more planning on your part.
Last time it was actually really ready. That 2-week break. Here we go. Alright, and if I remember right, we left out on chapter 7, isn't that right?
I don't know. I was
Yeah.
It was like a halfway point.
Yeah. Here, let me double check. I'm pretty sure it was here.
Damn it!
Yep, this is where we're at. Because it was right after, remember, we met the ghost children.
Is anyone else coming?
And alright. So Antonio. No, I don't see it. Alright, that's what we did last time. So it'd be me, you, then
that sounds good.
Alright.
Is it like a page? Proper has it worked?
Yeah, we do a whole chapter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh wait, what?
I'm on reader only mode.
Read only mode. What?
Listen, in this case, listen only
Oh,
mode.
you wanna listen? Well, you wanna do every other chapter then, honey?
Yeah, sure. I'll do every other chapter.
Alright.
I'm a little low on battery.
You're good. Some of the
I just
previous
woke
ones,
up,
I
not
read
even kidding.
literally the whole book. Like,
I
I enjoy
literally,
reading.
I literally took like a little nap. Like, I don't know.
Well, you're fine, brother. Like I said, I wouldn't have become a teacher if I didn't like reading books. You know what I mean?
Oh, thank you.
That's the gig.
You're good at reading, so.
Yeah, exactly. I've run whole book clubs where I did all of the reading, and people just shut up and
Oh,
play their
oh,
games.
see,
So,
now you got. Just kidding. Thank you.
all right, let's get started. Chapter 8. The other mother looked healthier than before. There was a little blush to her cheeks, and her hair was wriggling like lazy snakes on a warm day. Her black button eyes seemed as if they had been freshly polished. She had pushed to the mirror as if she were walking through nothing more solid than water, and had stared down at Coraline. Then she had opened the door with the little silver key. She picked Coraline up, just as Coraline's real mother had when Coraline was much younger, cradling the half sleeping child as if she were a baby. The other mother carried Coraline into the kitchen and put her down very gently upon the countertop. Coraline struggled to wake herself up, conscious only for a moment of having been cuddled and loved and wanting more of it, then realizing where she was and who she was with. There, my sweet Coraline, said her other mother. I came and fetched you out of the cupboard. You needed to be taught a lesson. But we temper our justice with mercy here. We love the sinner and we hate the sin. Now, if you will be a good child who loves your mother, be compliant and fair spoken, you and I shall understand each other perfectly, and we shall love each other perfectly as well. Coraline scratched the sleep grit from her eyes. There were other children in there, she said. Old ones from a long time ago. Were there? Said the other mother. She was bustling between the pans in the fridge, bringing out eggs and cheeses, butter and a slab of sliced pink bacon. Yes, said Coraline, there were. I think you're planning to turn me into one of them, a dead shell. Her other mother smiled gently. With one hand, she cracked the eggs into a bowl. With the other, she whisked them and whirled them. Then she dropped a pat of butter into a frying pan where it hissed and fizzled, and spun as she sliced big thin slices of cheese. She poured the melted butter and the cheese onto the egg mixture and whisked it some more. Now I think you're being silly, dear, said the other mother. I love you. I will always love you. Nobody sensible believes in ghosts anyways. That's because they're all such liars. Smell the lovely breakfast I'm making for you. She poured the yellow mixture into the pan. Cheese omelet, your favorite. Coraline's mouth watered. You
Stop
like
fucking
cheese, she
talking!
said. That's what I was
Damn!
told. The other mother's black eyes flashed. Everybody likes games, was all she said. Yes, said Coraline. She climbed down from the counter and sat at the table. The bacon was sizzling and spitting under the grill. It smelled wonderful. Wouldn't you be happier if you won me, fair and square? Asked Coraline.
With Veets editor,
Possibly, said the other mother. She had a show of unconcernedness, but her fingers twitched and drummed, and she licked her lips with her scarlet tongue. What exactly are you offering? Me, said Coraline, and she gripped her knees under the table to stop them from shaking. If I lose, I'll stay here with you forever, and I'll let you love me. I'll be a most dutiful daughter. I'll eat your food and play happy families, and I'll let you sew your buttons into my eyes. Her other mother stared at her, black buttons unblinking.
Cheers,
That
King
sounds
Aaron's.
very thoughtful,
Cheers.
she
Is
said.
that you? Is that
You
the
do that,
real
will
King
you?
Aaron's? Hold on.
Then you let me
Hold on. Let me
go.
mute. Let me mute this.
Everyone does.
Yo, King Aaron. Is that you? Is that you, King Aaron? The one we used to play Fortnite with. Is that you? Hell yeah. Let's go. I appreciate the support, man. It's been a long time. What has you been up to? We're just reading the Book of Caroline right now. Gotta change the title. Name of the title real quick. I don't know why my stream looks like. Why does it look like? It doesn't look like that on the fucking OBS. Why does it look like that? Hold on. Hold on, I gotta fix that. Does it look like that? What the hell? That should be better. Always living in Denver now. That's what's up. That's what's up, man. Tell Breezy Dog I said hi. You still talk to Hootie Who? And Fresh? Man, I gotta... Fuck. Alright. YouTube Studio. YouTube Creator Studio, yeah. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. What is this? What is this? What? No. YouTube Studio. Content. Live. Reading the Book of Coraline. There we go. Chillin'. Alright, let me unmute. Let's read this.
Anyway, asked Coraline. The other mother sat down at the kitchen table and leaned back against the wall, saying nothing. She picked at her teeth with a long crimson varnished fingernail. Then she tapped the finger gently, tap, 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 against the polished black surface of her black button eyes. Fine, said Coraline. Don't tell me. I don't care. It doesn't matter if you help me or not. Everyone knows that a soul is the same size as a beach ball. She was hoping that her other mother would say something like, nonsense! They're the size of ripe onions or suitcases her grandfather gloves. But the other mother simply smiled, and the tap-tap-tapping of her fingernail against her eye was as steady and relentless as the drip of water droplets from the faucet into the sink. And then Coraline realized...
Fuck! Do I gotta read this, bro?
Simply the noise of the water.
Are you kidding me, bro? I'm just trying to be a good friend.
Coraline shivered. She preferred the other mother to have a location. If she were nowhere, then she could be anywhere. And after all, it is always easier to be afraid of something you cannot see. She put her hands into her pockets and her fingers closed around the reassuring shape of the stone with the hole in it. She pulled it out of her pocket, held it in front of her.
Yeah, you're good. You're good, Rach. You're good.
And walked out into the room. There was no sound but the tap tap of the water dripping into the metal sink. She glanced at the mirror at the end of the hall. For a moment it clouded over, and it seemed to her that faces swam in the glass, indistinct and shapeless. And then the faces were gone, and there was nothing in the mirror but a girl who was small for her age, holding something that glowed gently, like a green coal. Coraline looked down at her hand, surprised. It was just a stone with a hole in it, a nondescript brown pebble. Then she looked back into the mirror where the stone glimmered like an emerald.
Alright.
A trail of green fire.
Alright. Okay. No!
She walked into the bedroom. The toys fluttered
Let me deafen. Let me
silently
deafen.
to
Let me
watch her,
deafen.
as if they were pleased to see her, and a little tank rolled out of the.
Let me deafen. Let me deafen, chat. No one. We're here for video games. We're not here to. Oh, I can't do this. It's tough. It's fucking tough.
Stood up and turned
Okay.
it over. The tank fled under the bed in embarrassment. Coraline looked around the room. She looked in the cupboards and the drawers. Then she picked up one end of the toy box and took all the contents out of
I'm
the
such a
other.
good
She
friend, chat.
growled and struggled
I'm
until
such a fucking good friend. I'm suffering
a gray
for your
marble dropped to the floor
entertainment.
and clicked against the wall.
I'm
One of the
fucking
toys
suffering
seemed
here.
particularly
I
soulless.
don't want to do this.
She picked up and examined the lucky
God.
charm bracelet from which hung tiny animal charms that chased each other around the perimeter of the bracelet. The fox never catching the rabbit, the bear never gaining on the fox. Coraline opened her hand and looked at the stone with the hole in it, hoping for a clue but not finding one. Most of the toys that had been in the toy box had now crawled away to hide under the bed, and the few toys that were left, a green plastic soldier, a glass marble, a vivid pink yo-yo, and such, were the kind of things you'd find in the bottom of toy boxes in the real world, forgotten objects abandoned and unloved. She was about to leave and look elsewhere, and then she remembered a voice in the darkness, a gentle whispering voice, and what it had told her to do. She raised the stone with a hole in it and held it right in front of her right eye. She closed her left eye and looked at the room through the hole in the stone. Through the stone, the world was gray and
Um,
colorless, like a pencil drawing. Everything in it was gray. No, not quite everything. Something glinted on the floor. Something the color of an ember in a nursery fireplace. The color of a scarlet and orange tulip nodding in the May sun. Coraline reached out her left hand, scared that if she took her eye off it, it would vanish, and she fumbled for the burning thing. Her fingers closed about something smooth and cool. She snatched it up and then lowered the stone with the hole in it from her eye and looked down. The gray glass marble from the bottom of the toy box sat dully in the pink palm of her hand. She raised the stone to her eye once more and looked through it at the marble. Once again the marble burned and flickered with a red fire. A voice whispered in her mind, "Indeed, lady, it seems to me that it certainly was a boy. Now I do think on it. Oh, but you must hurry. There are two of us still to find, and the Bedlam is already angry with you for uncovering me." If I'm going to do this, thought Coraline, I'm not going to do it in her clothes.
Her fingers closed about something smooth and cool. She snatched it up, and they lowered the stone with a hole in it from her eye. Oh! What are you doing? Peaches, put it up! She stepped forward in the hallway into another gust of wind, which stung her cheeks and face with invisible sand, sharp as needles, sharp as glass. "Play fair!" shouted Coraline. Into the wind there was no reply, but the wind whipped! Oh, I don't feel like reading. I don't feel like reading chat. I don't want to fucking do this. Do I have to fucking do this?
For the Bedlam is angry. She stepped forward in the hallway into another gust of wind, which stung her cheeks and face with invisible sand, sharp as needles, sharp as glass. "Play fair!" shouted Coraline into the wind. There was no reply, but the wind whipped about her one more time, petulantly, and then it dropped away and was gone. As she passed the kitchen, Coraline could hear in the sudden silence the drip, drip of the water from the leaking tap, or perhaps the other mother's long fingernails tapping impatiently against the table. Coraline resisted the urge to look. In a couple of strides, she reached the front door and she walked outside. Coraline went down the steps and around the house until she reached the other Miss Fink and Miss Forcible's flat. The lamps around the door were flickering on and off almost randomly now, spelling out no words that Coraline could understand. The door was closed. She was afraid it was locked and she pushed on it with all her strength. First it stuck, Then suddenly it gave, and with a jerk, Coraline stumbled into the dark room beyond. Coraline closed one hand around the stone with the hole in it and walked forward into blackness. She expected to find a curtained anteroom, but there was nothing there. The room was dark. The theater was empty. She moved ahead cautiously. Something rustled above
Oh my god!
into a deeper darkness.
Oh, I don't think I can do this much further.
Something.
Oh my
Reached down,
god!
flashlight, and
Oh!
sweeping the beams around the room.
Damn!
It was derelict and abandoned.
Oh!
Broken on the floor, and old dusty spider webs draped the walls and hung from the rotted wood and decomposing velvet hangings. Something rustled once again. Coraline directed her light beam upward towards the ceiling. There were things up there, hairless, jellyish. She thought they might once have had faces, might even once have been dogs. But no dogs had wings like bats, or could hang like spiders, like bats, upside down. The light startled the creatures, and one of them took to the air, its wings whirring heavily through the dust. Coraline ducked as it swooped close to her, came to rest on a far wall, and began to clamber, upside down, back to the nest of the dog bats upon the ceiling. Coraline raised the stone to her eye, and she scanned the room through it, looking for something that glowed or glinted, a telltale sign that somewhere in this room was another hidden soul. She ran the beam of the flashlight about the room as she searched, the thick dust in the air making the light beam seem almost solid. There was something up on the back wall behind the ruined stage. It was grayish white, twice the size of Coraline herself, and it was stuck to the back wall like a slug. Coraline took a deep breath. I'm not afraid, she told herself. I'm not. She did not believe herself, but she scrambled up onto the old stage, fingers sinking into the rotting wood as she pulled herself up. She got closer to the thing on the wall. She saw that it was some kind of sack, like a spider's egg case. It twitched in the light beam. Inside the sack was something that looked like a person, but a person with two heads, with twice as many arms and legs as it should have. The creature in the sack seemed horribly unformed and unfinished, as if two plasticine people had been warmed and rolled together, squashed and pressed into one thing.
Oh, okay, can I read? Can I read?
Oh, you want to read too,
Yeah,
Ron?
yes, I would love to read.
Yeah, you can be the next reader. We do it by chapter. So when I finish this chapter, you'll be next.
Okay, okay, okay,
I'll
okay.
let you know. Coraline hesitated. She did not want to approach them. The dog bats dropped one by one from the ceiling and began to circle the room, coming close to her but never touching her. Perhaps there are no souls hidden in here, she thought. Perhaps I can just leave and go somewhere else.
Wait,
She took a last look
hold
at
on.
the stone.
How long is this fucking chapter? It's... What am I gonna do? It's like 30 more chapters. I can't do this. How long is the chapter? It's already been like 10 pages he's read.
Slowly across the damp stage, trying to make as little noise as she could, afraid that if she disturbed the thing in the sack, it would open its eyes and see her, and then... But there was nothing that she could think of as scary as having to look at her. Her heart pounded in her chest. She took another step forward. She had never been so scared, but still she walked forward until she reached the sack. Then she pushed her hand in the sticky, clinging whiteness of the stuff on the wall. It crackled softly, like a tiny fire. As she pushed, and it clung to her skin and clothes like a spiderweb clings, like white cotton candy. She pushed her hand into it, and she reached upward until she touched a cold hand, which was, she could feel, closed around another glass marble. The creature's skin felt slippery, as if it had been covered in jelly. Coraline tugged at the marble. At first, nothing happened. It was held tight in the creature's grasp. Then, one by one, fingers loosened their grip, and then
Oh,
into her hand.
God!
She pulled her arm turned back through the sticky webbing, relieved that the thing's eyes had not opened. She shone the light on its faces.
Oh, why the fuck did I sign up to do this, bro? It's not fucking funny. Don't you fucking laugh at that. It's not fucking funny, chat. No one wants to see this, man.
Made a grab for Coraline's arm. Its fingers scraped her skin, but it was too slippery to grip, and Coraline pulled away successfully. And then the eyes opened. 4 black buttons blinking and staring down at her. The 2 voices that sounded like no voice that Coraline had ever heard began to speak to her. One of them wailed and whispered. The other buzzed like a fat and angry blue bottle at a window pane. But the voices said, as one person, "Thief! Give it back! Stop! Thief!" The air became alive with dog pats. Coraline began to back away. She realized then that terrifying the other thing on the wall that had once been the other Mrs. Spink enforceable word. It was attached to the wall by its web, encased in its cocoon. It could not follow her. The dog bats flapped and fluttered around her, but they did nothing to hurt Coraline. She climbed down from the stage, shone the flashlight about the old theater, looking for her way out. "Please, miss," wailed a girl's voice in her head. "Please, now! You have 2 of us flee this place while your blood still flows." Coraline dropped the marble into her pocket beside the other. She spotted the door, ran to it, and pulled on it until it opened. And we'll just appreciate this illustration real quick. And Rod, it's go time. Let me move this to a full screen here for you.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Finally.
Go.
Okay.
Wait, 1 second to restart the soundtrack before it,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
does the thing and you don't have a background. Alright.
Alright, I dedicate this reading to Tyler. Alright. Outside, the world had become a formless, swirling mist with no shapes or shadows behind it. While the house itself seemed to have twisted and stretched, it seemed to have Coraline that it was crouching and staring down at her, as if it were not really a house, but only the idea of a house. And the person who had the idea, she was certain, was not a good person. There was sticky web stuff clinging to her arm, and she wiped it off as best she could. The gray windows of the house slanted at strange angles. The other mother was waiting for her, standing on the grass with her arms folded. Her black button eyes were expressionless, but her lips were pressed tightly together in a cold fury. When she saw Coraline, she reached out, long white hand, and she crooked a finger. Coraline walked toward her. The other mother said nothing. "I got 2, said Coraline. "1 soul still to go." The expression on the other mother's face did not change. She might not have heard what Coraline said. "Well, I just thought you'd want to know," said Coraline. "Thank you, Coraline," said the other mother coldly. And her voice did not just come from her mouth. It came from the mist and the fog and the house and the sky, she said. "You know that I love you." Oh. And despite herself, Coraline nodded. It was true. The other mother loved her, but she loved Coraline as a mister loves money, or a dragon loves its gold. In the other mother's button eyes, Coraline knew that she was in possession, nothing more. A tolerated pet whose behavior was no longer amusing. "I don't want your love," said Coraline. "I don't want anything from you. Not even a helping hand," asked the mother. "You have been doing so well after all. I thought you might want a little hint to help you with the rest of your treasure hunt." "I'm doing fine on my own," said Coraline. "Yes," said the mother, "but if you wanted to get into the flat in the front, the empty one, to look around, you would find the door locked, and then where would you be?" "Oh!" Coraline pondered this for a moment, and then she said, "Is there a key?" The other mother stood there in the paper gray fog of the flattening world. Her black hair drifted about her head as if it had a mind and a purpose all of its own. She coughed suddenly in the back of her throat, and then she opened her mouth. The other mother reached up to her hand and removed a small brass front door key from her tongue. "Here," she said, "you'll need this to get in." She tossed the key casually towards Coraline, who caught it one-handed before she could think about whether she wanted it or not. The key was still slightly damp. A chill wind blew about them, and Coraline shivered and looked away. When she looked back, she was alone. Uncertainly, she walked around to the front of the house and stood in front of the door of the empty flat. Like all the doors, it was painted bright green. "She does not mean you well," whispered a ghost voice in her ear. "We do not believe that she would help you. It must be a trick." Coraline said, "Yes, you are right. I expect." Then she put the key in the lock and turned it. Silently, the door swung open, and silently Coraline walked inside. The flat had walls the color of mold milk. The wooden boards of the floor were uncarpeted and dusty with the marks and patterns of old carpets and rugs on them. There was no furniture in there, only places where furniture had been seen. Nothing decorated the walls. There were discolored rectangles on the walls to show where paintings or photographs had once hung. It was so silent that Coraline imagined that she could hear the motes of dust drifting through the air. She found herself to be quite worried that something would jump out at her, so she began to whistle. She thought it might make it harder for things to jump out at her if she was whistling. First, she walked through the empty kitchen. Then she walked through an empty bathroom containing only a cast iron bath, and in the bath a dead spider the size of a small cat. The last room she looked at had, she supposed, once been a bedroom. She could imagine that the rectangular dust shadow on the floorboards had once been a bed. Then she saw something and smiled grimly. Set into the floorboards was a large metal ring. Coraline knelt and took the cold ring in her hands, and she tugged upward as hard as she could. Terribly, slowly, stiffly, heavily, a hinged square of floor lifted. It was a trapdoor. It lifted, and through the opening, Coraline could see only darkness. She reached down, and her hand found a cold switch. She flicked it without much hope that it would work. But somewhere below her, a bulb lit, and a thin yellow light came up from the hole in the floor. She could see steps heading down, but nothing else. Coraline put her hand into her pocket and took out the stone with the hole in it. She looked through it and at the cellar, but saw nothing. She put the stone back into her pocket. Up through the hole came the smell of damp clay and something else, an astrid, I don't know what that says, tang like sour vinegar. Astrid. Tang like sour vinegar. Coraline let herself down into the hole, looking nervously at the trapdoor. It was so heavy that if it fell, she was sure she would be trapped down in the darkness forever. She put up a hand and touched it, but it stayed in position. And then she turned toward the darkness below, and she walked down the steps. Set into the wall at the bottom of the steps was another light switch, metal and rusting. She pushed it until it clicked down, and a naked bulb hanging from a wire from the low ceiling came on. It did not give up enough light even for Coraline to make out the things that had been painted onto the flaking cellar walls. The painting seemed crude. There were eyes. She could see that, and things that might have been grapes and other things below them. Coraline could not be sure that they were paintings of people. There was a pile of rubbish in one corner of the room, cardboard boxes filled with mild wet papers and decaying curtains in a heap besides them. Coraline's slippers crunched across the cement floor. The bad smell was worse. Now she was ready to turn and leave. When she saw the foot sticking out from beneath the pile of curtains, she took a deep breath. The smells of sour wine and moldy bread filled her head, and she pulled away the damp cloth to reveal something more or less the size and shape of a person. In that dim light, it took her several seconds to recognize it for what it was. The thing was pale and swollen like a grub, with thin, stick-like arms and feet. It had almost no features on its face, which had puffed and swollen like risen bread dough. The thing had two large black buttons where its eyes should have been. Coraline made a noise, a sound of revulsion and horror, and as if it had heard her and awakened, the thing began to sit up. Coraline stood there, frozen. The thing turned its head until both its black button eyes were pointed straight at her. A mouth opened in the mouthless face, strands of pale stuff sticking to the lips, and a voice that no longer even faintly resembled her father's whispered. "Coraline." "Well," said Coraline, "the things that had once been for her other father, at least you didn't jump out at me." The creature's twig-like hands moved to its face and pushed the pale clay about, making something like a nose. It said nothing. "I'm looking for my parents," said Coraline, "or a stolen soul from one of the other children. Are they down here?" "There is nothing down here," said the pale thing indistinctly. "Nothing but dust and damp and forgetting." The thing was white and huge and swollen. Monstrous, thought Coraline, but also miserable. She raised the stone with the hole in it to her eye and looked through it. Nothing. The pale thing was telling her the truth. "Poor thing," she said. I bet she made you come down here as a punishment for telling me too much." The thing hesitated, then it nodded. Coraline wondered how she could ever have imagined that this grub-like thing resembled her father. "I am so sorry," she said. "She's not best pleased," said the thing that was once the other father. "Not best pleased at all. You put her quite out of sorts, and when she gets out of sorts, she takes it out on everybody else. It is her way." Coraline patted its hairless head. Its skin was tacky, like warm bread dough. "Poor thing," she said. "You were just a thing she made and then threw away." The thing nodded vigorously. As it nodded, the left button eye fell off and clattered onto the concrete floor. The thing looked around vacantly with its one eye, as if it had lost her. Finally it saw her, and as if making a great effort, it opened its mouth once more and said in a wet, urgent voice, "Run, child. Leave this place. She wants me to hurt you, to keep you here forever, so that you can never finish the game and she will win. She is pushing me so hard to hurt you, I cannot fight her." "You can," said Coraline. "Be brave." She looked around. The thing that had once been the other father was between her and the steps up and out of the cellar. She started edging along the wall, heading toward the steps. The thing twisted bonelessly until its one eye was again facing her. It seemed to be getting bigger now, and more awake. "Alas," it said, "I cannot," and it lunged across the cellar toward her, then its toothless mouth opened wide. Coraline had a single heartbeat in which to react. She could only think of two things to do. Either she could scream and try to run away and be chased around a badly lit cellar by the huge grub thing, be chased until it caught her, or she could do something else. So she did something else. As the thing reached her, Coraline put out her hand to close it around the thing's remaining button eye, and she tugged as hard as she knew how. For a moment nothing happened. Then the button came away and flew from her hand, clicking against the walls before it fell to the cellar floor. The thing froze in place. It threw its pale head back blindly, and opened its mouth horribly wide, and it roared like its anger and frustration. Then all in a rush, the thing swept toward the place where Coraline had been standing. But Coraline was not standing there any longer. She was already tiptoeing as quietly as she could, up the steps that would take her away from the dim cellar with the crude paintings on the walls. She could not take her eyes from the floor beneath her, though, across which the pale thing flopped and writhed, hunting for her. Then, as if it was being told what to do, the creature stopped moving, and its blind head tipped to one side. "It's listening for me," thought Coraline. "I must be extra quiet." She took another step up, and her foot slipped on the step, and the thing heard her. Its head tipped toward her. For a moment it swayed and seemed to be gathering its wits. Then, fast as a serpent, it slithered for the steps and began to flow up them. Toward her, Coraline turned and ran away wildly up the last half-dozen steps, and she pushed herself up and onto the floor of the dusty bedroom. Without pausing, she pulled the heavy trapdoor toward her and let go of it. It crashed down with a thump, just as something large banged against it. The trapdoor shook and rattled in the floor, but it stayed where it was. Coraline took a deep breath. If there had been any furniture in that flat even a chair. She would have pulled it onto the trapdoor, but there was nothing. She walked out of that flat as fast as she could, without actually ever running, and she locked the front door behind her. She left the door key under the mat. Then she walked down onto the drive. She had half expected that the other mother would be standing there, waiting for Coraline to come out, but the world was silent and empty. Coraline wanted to go home. She hugged herself and told herself that she was brave, and she almost believed herself, and then she walked around to the side of the house in the gray mist that wasn't a mist, and she made for the stairs to go up.
Oh,
Yay!
good job.
Thank you. I tried.
Rob, is this a thing? Are we gonna be doing this now? Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Good job.
I'm even expanding my vocabulary so I can learn these words.
Heck yeah, brother. Oh my god, I'm loving this. Alright, honey.
All right.
Is that too far out for you?
No, no, that's fine. I dedicate this to Robert.
Thank you. Thank you. Whoa. I'm flattered.
Coraline walks up the stairs outside, the building to the topmost flat, where, in her world, the crazy old man lived upstairs. She had gone up there once with her real mother, when her mother was collecting for charity. They had stood in the open doorway, waiting for the crazy old man with the big mustache to find the envelope that Coraline's mother had left. The flat had smelled of strange foods and pipe tobacco and old, sharp, cheesy smelling things Coraline could not name. She had not wanted to
Oh.
go further inside than that. I'm gonna
Oh god.
I'm gonna
Oh,
explore,
God.
said Coraline out loud, but her words sounded muffled and dead on the misty air. She had made it out of the cellar, hadn't she? And she had. But if there was one thing that Coraline was certain of, it was that this flat would be worse. She reached the top of the house. The topmost flat had once been the attic of the house, but that was long ago. She knocked on the green painted door. It swung open, and she walked in.
Give me 1
Coraline Book
second,
Club,
honey.
whole humor. Coraline,
I didn't realize the soundtrack turned off.
fantastic
I'm sorry.
greetings.
Sorry.
My reading's going everywhere now.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't realize the song turned off until you got like 2 paragraphs in.
Oh, I'm already done, I guess.
Yeah, that was your chapter. Bye. I'm sorry.
He's short but sweet.
We have eyes and we have nerveses. We have tails, we have teeth. You all get what you deserve, says when we rise from underneath, whispered a dozen or more tiny voices. In the dark flat with the roof so low where it met the walls that Coraline could almost reach up and touch it. Red eyes stared at her. Little pink feet scurried away as she came close. Darker shadows slipped through the shadows at the edges of things. It smelled much worse in here than in the real cozy old man upstairs flat.
Hold on.
That smell of food. Coraline fine, but she knew that was a matter of taste. She did not like spices, herbs, or exotic things. This place smelled as if all the exotic foods in the world had been left out to go rot. Little girl, said a rustling voice in a far room. Yes, said Coraline. I'm not frightened, she told herself, and as she thought it, she knew that it was true. There was nothing here to be that frightened her. Can you turn on the music a little?
A little bit too loud?
Yeah.
I struggle with what comes for you guys through. Wait, how's that? Better? There you go.
Yeah. These things, even the thing in the cellar, were illusions. Things made by the other mother, and a ghastly parody of the real people and real things on the other end of the corridor. She could not truly make anything, decided Coraline. She could only twist and copy and distort things that already existed. And then Coraline found herself wondering why the other mother would have placed a snow globe on the drawing room mantelpiece. For the mantelpiece in Coraline's world was quite bare. As soon as she had asked herself a question, she realized that there was actually an answer. Then the voice came out again, and her train of thought was interrupted. Come here, little girl. I know that what you want, little girl. It was a rustling voice, scratchy and dry. It made Coraline think of some kind of enormous dead insect, which was silly, she knew. How could a dead thing, especially a dead insect, have a voice? She walked through several rooms with low slanting ceilings until she came to the final room. It was a bedroom, and the other crazy old man upstairs sat at the end of the room in the near darkness, bundled up in his coat and hat. As Coraline entered, he began to talk. Nothing's changed, little girl, he said, his voice sounding like the noise dry leaves make as they rustle across the pavement. And what if you do everything you swore you would? What then? Nothing's changed. You'll go home, you'll be bored, you'll be ignored. No one will listen to you, not really listen to you. You're too clever and too quiet for them to understand. They don't even get your name right. Stay here with us, said the voice from the figure at the end of the room. We will listen to you and play with you and laugh with you. Your other mother will build whole worlds for you to explore and tear them down every night when you are done. Every day will be better and brighter than the one that went before. Remember the toy box? How much better a world would a world be built just like that? All for you. And there'll be gray, wet days where I just don't know what to do. And there's nothing to read or to watch, nowhere to go, and the day drags on forever. Oh, sorry, that was Coraline speaking. That's Coraline? From the shadows, the man said, never. And will there be awful meals with food made from recipes with garlic and tarragon and broad beans in? Asked Coraline. Every meal will be a thing of joy, whispered the voice from under the old man's hat. Nothing will pass your lips that does not entirely delight you. And could I have a day-glow green gloves to wear and yellow Wellington boots in the shape of frogs? Asked Coraline. Frogs, ducks, rhinos, octopuses, whatever you desire. The world will be built new for you every morning. If you stay here, you can have whatever you want. Coraline sighed. You really don't understand, do you? She said. I don't want whatever I want. Nobody does. Not really. What kind of fun would it be if I just got everything I ever wanted, just like that, and it didn't mean anything? What then? I don't understand, said the whispery voice. Of course you don't understand, she said, raising the stone with the hole in it to her eye. You're just a bad copy she made of the crazy old man upstairs. Not even that anymore, said the dead, whispery voice. There was a glow coming from the raincoat of the man at about chest height. Through the hole in the stone, the glow twinkled and shone blue white as any star. She wished she had a stick or something to poke him with. She had no wish to get any closer to the shadowy man at the end of the room. Coraline took a step closer to the man and fell apart. Black rats leapt from the sleeves from under the coat and hat, and a score more of them, red eyes shining in the dark. They chittered and they fled. The coat fluttered and fell heavily to the floor. The hat rolled into one corner of the room. Coraline reached out one hand and pulled the coat open. It was empty, although it was greasy to touch. There was no sign of the final glass marble in it. She scanned the room, squinting through the hole in the stone, and caught sight of something that twinkled and burned like a star at floor level by the doorway. It was being carried in the forepaws of the largest black rat. She looked, it slipped away. The other rats watched her from the corners of the rooms as she ran after it. Now, rats can run faster than people, especially over short distances. But a large black rat holding a marble in its two front paws is no match for a determined girl, even if she is small for her age. Moving at a run. Smaller black rats ran back and forth across her path, trying to distract her, but she ignored them all, keeping her eyes fixed on the one with the marble, who was heading straight out of the flat toward the front door. They reached the steps on the outside of the building. Coraline had time to observe that the house itself was continuing to change, becoming less distinct and flattening out. Even as she raced down the stairs, it reminded her of a photograph of a house now, not the thing itself.
As you
She
can
was able to
see, we're
see
reading the Book of
running down the
Coraline.
steps in pursuit of the rat. Within
We're reading the Book of Coraline, so if you're interested, stay tuned. We're gonna finish it tonight in like an hour. I'll read soon.
onto the concrete landing. Her left knee was scraped in skin, and the palm one hand had thrown out to stop herself was a mess of scraped skin and grit. It hurt a little, and it would, she knew, soon hurt much more. She picked the grit out of her palm and climbed to her feet, and, as fast as she could, knowing that she had lost and it was already too late, she went down to the final landing at the ground level. She looked around for the rat. but it was gone, and the marble with it. Her hand stung where the skin had been scraped, and there was blood trickling down her ripped pajama leg from her knee. It was as bad as the summer that her mother had taken the training wheels off Coraline's bicycle. But then, back then, and with all the cuts and scrapes, her knees had scabs on top of the scabs, she had a feeling of achievement. She was learning something, doing something she had not known how to do. Now she felt nothing but cold loss. She had failed the ghost children. She had failed her parents. She had failed herself. Failed everything. She closed her eyes and wished that the earth would swallow her up. There was a cough. She opened her eyes and saw the rat. It was lying on the brick path at the bottom of the stairs with a surprised look on its face, which was now several inches away from the rest of it. Its whiskers were stiff, its eyes were wide open, its teeth visible and yellow and sharp. A collar of wet blood glistened at its neck. Beside the decapitated rat, a smug expression on its face, was the black cat. It rested one paw on the gray glass marble. I think I once mentioned, said the cat, that I don't like rats on the best of times. It looked like you needed this one, however. I hope you don't mind my getting involved. I think, said Coraline, trying to catch her breath, I think you may have said something of that sort. The cat lifted its paw from the marble, which rolled toward Coraline. She picked it up. In her mind, a final voice whispered to her urgently, she has lied to you. She will never give you up now she has you. She will no more give any of us up than change her nature. The hairs on the back of Coraline's neck prickled, and Coraline knew that the girl's voice told the truth. She put the black marble in her dressing gown pocket with the others. She had all three marbles now. All she needed to do was find her parents. And Coraline realized with surprise that bit was easy. She knew exactly where her parents were. If she had stopped to think, she might have known where they were all along. The other mother could not create. She could only transform and twist and change. The mantelpiece in the drawing room back home was quite empty. But knowing that, she knew something else as well. The other mother. She plans to break her promise. She won't let us go, said Coraline. I would not put it past her, admitted the cat. Like I said, there's no guarantee she'll play fair. And then he raised his head. Oh, did you see that? What? Look behind you, said the cat. The house had flattened out even more. It no longer looked like a photograph, more like a drawing, a crude charcoal scribble of a house drawn on gray paper. What's happening? Said Coraline. Thank you for helping with the rat. I suppose I'm almost there, aren't I? So you go off into the mist, or wherever you go, and well, I hope I get to see you at home, if she lets me go home. The cat's fur was on end, and its tail was bristling like a chimney sweep's brush. What's wrong? Asked Coraline. They've gone, said the cat. They aren't there anymore. The way's in and out of this place. They just went flat. Is that bad? The cat lowered its tail, swishing it from side to side angrily. It made a low growling noise in the back of its throat. It walked in a circle until it was facing away from Coraline, and then it began to walk backward, swiftly, one step at a time, until it was pushing up against Coraline's leg. She put down a hand to stroke it, and could feel how hard its heart was beating. It was trembling like a dead leaf in a storm. You'll be fine, said Coraline. Everything's going to be fine. I'll take you home. The cat said nothing. Come on, cat, said Coraline. She took a step back toward the steps. The cat stayed where it was, looking miserable. Oddly, much smaller. If only the way out is past her, said Caroline. And then that's the way we're going to go. She went back to the cat, bent down, and picked it up. The cat did not resist. It simply trembled. She supported its bottom with one hand, rested its front legs on her shoulders. The cat was heavy, but not too heavy to carry. It licked at the palm of her hand, where the blood from the scrape was welling up. Coraline walked up the stairs one at a time, heading back to her own flat. She was aware of the marbles clinking in her pocket, aware of the stone with a hole in it, aware of the cat pressing itself against her. She got to the front door, now just a small child scrawn of a door. and she pushed her hand against it, half expecting that her hand would rip through it, revealing nothing behind it but blackness and a scattering of stars. But the door swung open, and Coraline went through.
Yeah, yeah, so you just tried. We have like maybe 3 chapters left, so like 45 minutes if you're gonna stay awake and you wanna play. We're finishing up book club right now.
Bravo. Bravo, Tyler.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
I know, it's totally so good. Everyone's so good.
Good
Yeah,
job.
I'm glad I
Alright.
joined.
Yeah. Uh it got to the spooky part too. You chose a good night to join.
Yeah.
Alright. Chapter 11. Once inside in her flat, or rather in the flat that was not hers, Coraline was pleased to see that it had not transformed into the empty drawing that the rest of the house seemed to have become. It had depth and shadows, and someone who stood in the shadows, waiting for Coraline to return. So you're back, said the other mother. She did not sound pleased. And you brought vermin with you. No, said Coraline. I brought a friend. She could feel the cat stiffening under her hands, as if it were anxious to be away. Coraline wanted to hold on to it like a teddy bear for reassurance, but she knew that cats hate to be squeezed, and she suspected that frightened cats were liable to bite and scratch if provoked in any way, even if they were on your side. You know I love you, said the other mother flatly. You have a very funny way of showing it, said Coraline. She walked down the hallway, then turned into the drawing room, steady step by steady step, pretending that she could not feel the other mother's blank black eyes on her back. Her grandmother's formal furniture was still there, and the painting on the wall of the strange fruit, but now the fruit in the painting had been eaten, and all that remained in the bowl was the browning core of an apple, several plums, and peach stones, and the stem of what had formerly been a bunch of grapes. The lion pawed table raked the carpet with its clawed wooden feet, as if it were impatient for something. At the end of the room, in the corner, stood the wooden door, which had once, in another place, opened onto a plain brick wall. Coraline tried not to stare at it. The window showed nothing but mist. This was it, Coraline knew. The moment of truth, the unraveling time. The other mother had followed her in. Now she stood in the center of the room, between Coraline and the mantelpiece, and looked down at Coraline with black button eyes. It was funny, Coraline thought. The other mother did not look anything at all like her own mother. She wondered how she had ever been deceived into imagining a resemblance. The other mother was huge, her head almost brushed the ceiling, and very pale, the color of a spider's belly. Her hair writhed and twined about her head, and her teeth were sharp as knives. Well, said the other mother sharply, where are they? Coraline leaned against an armchair, adjusted the cap with her left hand, put her right hand into her pocket, and pulled out the 3 glass marbles. They were a frosted gray, and they clinked together in the palm of her hand. The other mother reached her white fingers for them, but Coraline slipped them back into her pocket. She knew it was true then. The other mother had no intention of letting her go or of keeping her word. It had been an entertainment and nothing more. Hold on, she said. We aren't finished yet, are we? The other mother looked daggers, but smiled sweetly. No, she said. I suppose not. After all, you still need to find your parents, don't you? Yes, said Coraline. I must not look at the mantelpiece, she thought. I must not even think about it. Well, said the other mother, produce them. Would you like to look in the cellar again? I have some other interesting things hidden down there, you know. No, said Coraline. I know where my parents are. The cat was heavy in her arms. She moved it forward, unhooking its claws from her shoulder as she did so. Where? It stands to reason, said Coraline. I've looked everywhere. You'd hide them. They aren't in the house. The other mother stood very still, giving nothing away, lips tightly closed. She might have been a wax statue. Even her hair had stopped moving. So, Coraline continued, both hands firmly wrapped around the black cat. I know where they have to be. You've hidden them in the passageway between the houses, haven't you? There behind that door. She nodded her head towards the door in the corner. The other mother remained statue still, but a hint of a smile crept back onto her face. Oh, they are they? Why don't you open it? Said Coraline. They'll be there all right. It was her only way home, she knew. But it all depended on the other mother's needing to gloat, needing not only to win, but to show that she had won. The other mother reached her hand slowly into her apron pocket and produced the black iron key. The cat stirred uncomfortably in Coraline's arms as if it wanted to get down. Just stay there for a few moments longer, she guided it, wondering if it could hear her. I'll get us both home. I said I would. I promise. She felt the cat relax ever so slightly in her arms.
Oh God,
The
I'm
other
back. I'm
mother
back.
walked over to
I'm
the
back,
door
chat.
and pushed
My
the
bad.
key into the lock. She
My fault.
turned the key. Coraline heard the mechanism clunk heavily. She was already starting as quietly as she could, step by step, to back away
Fuck.
toward the mantelpiece. The other mother pushed down on the door handle and pulled open the door, revealing a corridor behind it, dark and empty. There, she said, waving her hands up the corridor. The expression of delight on her face was a very bad thing to see. You're wrong. You don't even know where your parents are, do you? They aren't there. She turned and looked at Coraline. Now, she said, you're going to stay here forever and always. No, said Coraline, I'm not. And hard as she could, she threw the black cat toward the other mother. It yowled and landed on the other mother's head, claws flailing, teeth bared, fierce and angry. Fur on end, it looked half again as big as it was in real life. Without waiting to see what would happen, Coraline reached up to the mantelpiece and closed her hand around the snow globe, pushing it deep into the pocket of her dressing gown. The cat made a deep, ululating yowl and sank its teeth into the other mother's cheek. She was flailing at it. Blood ran from the cuts on her white face. Not red blood, but a deep, tarry black stuff. Coraline ran for the door.
Ululating.
I know. I've only ever seen that word like once before, and every time I read it to my students, I always had a micropause where I was like, I always forget he puts in this super weird, hyper specific word.
Look at that ululating yowl.
Yeah. Yeah, right? She pulled the key out of the lock. Leave her! Come on! She shouted to the cat. It hissed and swiped its scalpel sharp claws at the other mother's face in one wild rake, which left black ooze trickling from several gashes on the other mother's nose. Then it sprang down on
Oh my God.
Coraline. Quickly, she said. The cat ran toward her, and they both stepped into the dark corridor.
This is risky
They
eating
pulled
wings here in my room.
stepping down into a
Not a good idea. But I'm gonna do it anyways. I can do whatever I want. I'm a streamer.
It ran to Coraline and stopped by her legs. Coraline began to pull the door closed.
I got 3 viewers.
Heavier
I'm
than
the
she could
shit.
imagine the door
You know that?
Pulling it closed was like
Yeah.
trying to close a door against a high wind. And then she felt something from the other side start to pull against her. Shit, she thought. Then she said out loud, come on, please. And she felt the door begin to move, to pull close, to give against the phantom wind. Suddenly, she was aware of other people in the corridor with her. She could not turn her head to look at them, but she knew them without having to look. Help me, please, she said, all of you. The other people in the corridor, 3 children, 2 adults, were somehow too insubstantial to touch the door, but their hands closed about hers as she pulled on the big iron door handle. And suddenly she felt strong. Never let up, miss. Hold strong, whispered a voice in her mind. Pull, girl, pull, whispered another. And then a voice that sounded like her mother's, her own mother, her real, wonderful, maddening, infuriating, glorious mother, that said, well done, Coraline. And that was enough. The door started to slip closed easily as anything. No! Screamed a voice from beyond the door, as it no longer sounded even faintly human. Something snatched at Coraline, reached through the closing gap between the door and the outer doorpost. Coraline jerked her head out of the way, but the door began to open once more. We are going to go home, said Coraline. We are. Help me. She ducked the snatching fingers. They moved through her. Then ghost hands lent her strength that she no longer possessed. There was a final moment of resistance, as if something were caught in the door, and then with a crash, the wooden door banged close. Something dropped from Coraline's head height to the floor. It landed with a sort of scuttling thump. Come on, said the cat. This is not a good place to be in. Quickly. Coraline turned her back on the door and began to run, as fast as was practical through the corridor, running her hand along the wall to make sure she didn't bump into anything or get turned around in the darkness. It was an uphill run, and it seemed to her that it went on for a longer distance than anything could possibly go. The
Shit, I gotta prepare myself for when I become a top streamer, top 10 streamer. So I'm eating in front of the camera. I know you're calling me crazy. You're thinking there's no possible way. We'll see.
touch felt hot and wet, as if she had put her hand in somebody's mouth, and she pulled it back with a small well. Her eyes had adjusted to the dark. She could see as faintly glowing patches ahead of her, 2 adults, 3 children. She could hear the cat, too, padding in the dark in front of her. And there was something else, which suddenly scuttled between her feet, nearly sending Coraline flying. She caught herself before she went down, using her own momentum to keep moving. She knew that if she fell in that corridor, she might never get up again. Whatever that corridor was older by far than the other mother. It was deep and slow, and it knew that she was there. The daylight appeared, and she ran toward it, puffing and wheezing. Almost there, she called encouragingly. But in the light, she discovered that the race had gone. She was alone. She did not have time to wonder what had happened to them. Panting for breath, she staggered through the door and slammed it behind her with the loudest, most satisfying bang you can imagine. Coraline locked the door with the key and put the key back into her pocket. The black cat was huddled in the farthest corner of the room, the pink tip of its tongue showing, its eyes wide. Coraline went over to it and crouched down beside it. I'm sorry, she said. I'm sorry I threw you at her, but it was the only way to distract her enough to get us all out. She would have never kept her word, would she? The cat looked up at her and rested its head on her hand, licking her fingers with its sandpapery tongue. It began to purr. And my friend? Said Coraline. She sat down in one of her grandmother's uncomfortable armchairs, and the cat sprang up into her lap and made itself comfortable. The light that came through the picture window was daylight, real golden late afternoon daylight, not a white mist light. The sky was a robin's egg blue, and Coraline could see trees, and beyond the trees, green hills, which faded on the horizon into purples and grays. The sky had never seemed so sky. The world had never seemed so world. Coraline stared at the leaves on the trees and at the patterns of light and shadow on the cracked bark of the trunk of the beech tree outside the window. Then she looked down at her lap, at the way that the rich sunlight brushed every hair on the cat's head, turning each white whisker to gold. Nothing, she thought, had ever been so interesting. And caught up in the interestingness of the world, Coraline barely noticed that she had wriggled down and crawled cat-like on her grandmother's uncomfortable armchair. Nor did she notice when she fell into a deep and dreamless sleep. Picture. All right, the next one. All right, Rob, this will be yours. This is a good distance for you to read.
Raw?
Oh
Yeah,
no.
he's there. Is
Um,
this a good distance for you?
Here's the thing.
Oh, I
Are
can
you
read
in a
if you.
match? Are you in a
I'm
match?
I'm
That's
eating.
okay.
I'm eating.
Oh, you're eating. Do you want to switch with Tyler? Tyler would do the next one, and then you can take the final one.
Yes.
Perfect.
Her mother shook her gently awake. Coraline, she said, darling, what a funny place to fall asleep. And really, this room is only for best. We looked all over the house for you. Coraline stretched and blinked. I'm sorry, she said. I fell asleep. I can see that, said her mother. And wherever did the cat come from? He was waiting by the front door when I came in. Shot out like a bullet as I opened it. Probably had things to do, said Coraline. And then she hugged her mother so tightly that her arms began to ache. Her mother hugged Coraline back. Dinner in 15 minutes, said her mother. Don't forget to wash your hands. And just look at those pajama bottoms. What did you do to your poor knee? I tripped, said Coraline. She went into the bathroom and she washed her hands and cleaned her bloody knee. She put ointment on her cuts and scrapes. She went into her bedroom, her real bedroom, her true bedroom. She pushed her hands into the pockets of her dressing gown and pulled out 3 marbles, a stone with a hole in it, the black key, and an empty snow globe. She shook the snow globe and watched the glittery snow swirl through the water to fill the empty world. She put it down and watched the snow fall, covering the place where the little couple had once stood. Coraline took a piece of string from her toy box, and she strung the black key on the string. Then she knotted the string and hung it around her neck. There, she said. She put on some clothes and hid the key under her t-shirt. It was cold against her skin. The stone went into her pocket. Coraline walked down the hallway to her father's study. He had his back to her, but she knew, just on seeing him, that his eyes, when he turned around, would be her father's kind gray eyes, and she crept over and kissed him on the back of his balding head. Hello, Coraline, he said, and they looked around and smiled at her. Oh, what was that for? Nothing, said Coraline. I just miss you sometimes. That's all. Oh, good, he said. He put the computer to sleep, stood up, and then, for no reason at all, he picked Coraline up, which he had not done for such a long time. Not since he had started pointing out to her she was much too old to be carried, and he carried her into the kitchen. Dinner that night was pizza, even though it was homemade by her father, so the crust was alternately thick and doughy and raw, or too thin and burnt. And even though he had put slices of green pepper on it, along with little meatballs and, of all things, pineapple chunks, Coraline ate the entire slice she had been given. Well, she ate everything except for the pineapple chunks, and soon enough, it was bedtime. Coraline kept the key around her neck, but she put the gray marbles beneath her pillow. And in bed that night, Coraline dreamed a dream. She was at a picnic under an old oak tree in a green meadow. The sun was high in the sky, and while there were distant, fluffy white clouds on the horizon, the sky above her head was a deep, untroubled blue. There was a white linen cloth laid on the grass, with bowls piled high with food. She could see salads and sandwiches, nuts and fruit, jugs of lemonade and water, and thick chocolate milk. Coraline sat on one side of the tablecloth, while 3 other children took a side each. They were dressed in the oddest clothes. The smallest of them, sitting on Coraline's left, was a boy with red velvet knee breeches and frilly white shirt. His face was dirty, and he was piling his plate high with boiled new potatoes and with what looked like cold, whole cooked trout. This is the finest picnics, lady, he said to her. Sorry, you don't like my kid voice? Thanks, honey. Yes, said Coraline. I think it is. I wonder who organized it. Well, I'd rather you did, miss. I guess that's gonna be all the ghost voice. Yeah. Said a tall girl sitting opposite Coraline. She wore a brown, rather shapeless dress and had a brown bonnet on her head, which tied beneath her chin. And we are more grateful for it and for all than ever words can say. She was eating slices of bread and jam, deftly cutting the bread from a large golden brown loaf with a huge knife, then spooning on the purple jam with a wooden spoon. She had jam all around her mouth. Aye, this is the finest food I have ever eaten in centuries, said the girl on Coraline's right. She was a very pale child, dressed in what seemed to be spider's webs, with a circle of glittering silver set in her blonde hair. Coraline could have sworn that the girl had two wings, like dusty silver butterfly wings, not bird wings, coming out of her back. The girl's plate was piled high with pretty flowers. She smiled at Coraline, as if it had been a very long time since she had smiled, and she had almost, but not quite, forgotten how. Coraline found herself liking this girl immensely. And then, in the way of dreams, the picnic was done, and they were playing in the meadow, running and shouting and tossing a glittering ball from one to another. Coraline knew it was a dream then, because none of them ever got tired or winded or out of breath. She wasn't even sweating. They just laughed and ran in a game that was a partly tag, partly piggy in the middle, and partly just a magnificent romp. Three of them ran along the ground, while the pale girl fluttered a little over their heads, swooping down on butterfly wings to grab the ball and swing up into the air before she tossed the ball to one of the other children. And then, without a word about it being spoken, the game was done, and the four of them went back to the picnic cloth, where the lunch dishes had been cleared away, and there were four bowls waiting for them, three of ice cream, one of honeysuckle flowers piled high. They ate with relish. Thank, thank you for
Antonio said he had to go pick up a friend.
Oh, I
He'll be
gotcha.
back, yeah.
Thank you for coming to my party, said Coraline, if it is mine. The pleasure is all, Coraline Jones.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Hell yeah, let's go. Is this good distance? You need a little closer.
I got you. I got you.
Nobody has gifted
Yep.
Master of Soul.
Is this do you want me to zoom in a little bit, or is this a good distance for the text?
That's good.
Okay, right on.
All right. Oh, this is it.
This is last chapter, yeah.
Oh.
I think this is actually.
Oh yes, let me just bask in this glory.
And honey, if you don't fucking read it to our kids with those same exact voices, I'm gonna be pissed as hell.
That was great. Coraline's parents never seemed to remember anything about their time in the snow globe. At least they never said anything about it, and Coraline never mentioned it to them. Sometimes she wondered whether they had ever noticed that they had lost 2 days in the real world, and came to the eventual conclusion that they had and there are people who don't. And Coraline's parents were solidly in the second camp. Coraline had placed the marbles beneath her pillow before she went to sleep that first night, home in her own room once more. She went back to bed after she saw the other mother's hand, although there was not much time left for sleeping, and she rested her head back on that pillow. Something scrunched gently as she did. She sat up and lifted the pillow. The fragments of the glass marbles that she saw looked like the remains of eggshells one finds beneath trees in springtime, like empty, broken robin's eggs, or even more delicate, wren's eggs, perhaps. Whatever had been inside the glass spheres had gone. Coraline thought of the 3 children waving goodbye to her in the moonlight, waving before they crossed that silver stream. She gathered up the eggshell thin fragments with care and placed them in a small blue box, which had once held the bracelet that her grandmother had given her when she was a little girl. The bracelet was long lost, but the box remained. Miss Spink and Miss Forcible.
Fixable. Yeah,
For-
it's one of those weird names.
Came back from visiting Miss Spink's niece, and Coraline went down to their flat for tea. It was on Monday. On Wednesday, Coraline would go back to school. A whole new school year would begin. and Coraline went down to their flat. Oh wait, Coraline would go back to school. A whole new school year would begin. Miss Forcible. Wait, where am I? Am I lost? Okay.
Yeah, you got it. You're in there. Spot.
Miss Forcible insisted on reading Coraline's tea leaves. Well, looks like everything's mostly ship-shape and Bristol fashion. Lovey, said Miss Forcible. Sorry, said Coraline. Everything is coming up roses, said Miss Forcible. Well, almost everything. I'm not sure what that is. She pointed to a clump of tea leaves sticking to the side of the cup. Miss Spank tutted and reached for the cup. Honestly, Miriam, give it over here. Let me see. She blinked through her thick spectacles. Oh dear. No, I have no idea what that signifies. It looks almost like a hand. Coraline looked. The clump of leaves did look a little like a hand reaching for something. Hamish, the Scotty dog, was hiding under Miss Forcible's chair, and he wouldn't come out. I think he was in some sort of fight, and Miss Spink has a deep gash in his side. Poor dear. We'll take him to the vet later this afternoon. I wish I knew what could have been done. What could have done it? Something Coraline knew would have to be done. That final week of the holidays, the weather was magnificent, as if the summer itself were trying to make up for the miserable weather they had been having by giving them some bright and glorious days before it ended. The crazy old man upstairs called down to Coraline when he saw her coming out of Miss Spink and Miss Forcible's flat. Hey, hi you, Coraline, he shouted over the railing. It's Coraline, she said. How are the mice? Something has frightened them. And the old man, scratching his mustache, I think maybe there is a weasel in the house. Something is about. I heard it in the night. In my country, we would have put down a trap for it. Maybe put down a little meat or hamburger, and when the creatures come to feast, then bam! Bam! It would be caught and never bother us more. The mice are so scared they will not even pick up their little musical instruments. I don't think it wants me, said Coraline. She put her hands and touched the black key and that hung about her neck. Then she went inside and bathed herself and kept the key around her neck the whole time she was in the bath. She never took it off anymore. Something scratched at her bedroom window after she went to bed. Coraline was almost asleep, but she slipped out of her bed and pulled open the curtains. A white hand with crimson fingernails leapt from the window ledge onto a drain pipe and was immediately out of sight. There were deep gouges in the glass on the other side of the window. Coraline slept uneasily that night, waking from time to time to plot and plan and ponder, then falling back into sleep, never quite certain where her pondering ended up and the dream began. One ear always open for the sound of something scratching at her window pane or at her bedroom door. In the morning, Coraline said to her mother, I'm going to have a picnic with my dolls today. Can I borrow a sheet, an old one? You don't need any longer as a tablecloth. I don't think we have one of those, said her mother. She opened the kitchen drawer and held the napkins and the tablecloths, and she prodded about. In it, hold on, will this do? It was a folded up disposable paper tablecloth covered with red flowers left over from some picnic they had been on several years before. That's perfect, said Coraline. I didn't think you played with your dolls anymore, said Mrs. Jones. I don't, admitted Coraline. They're protective coloration. Well, be back in time for lunch, said her mother. Have a good time. Coraline filled a cardboard box with dolls, and with several plastic dolls' teacups, she filled the jug with water. Then she went outside. She walked down to the road, just as if she were going to the shops. Before she reached the supermarket, she cut across a fence into some wasteland, and along an old drive, then crawled under a hedge. She had to go under the hedge in 2 journeys in order not to spill the water from the jug. It was a long, roundabout, looping journey, but at the end of it, Coraline was satisfied that she had not been followed. She came out behind the dilapidated old tennis court. She crossed over it to the meadow where the long grass swayed. She found the planks on the edge of the meadow. They were astonishingly heavy, almost too heavy for a girl to lift, even using all her strength, but she managed. She didn't have any choice. She pulled the planks out of the way, one by one, grunting and sweating with the effort, revealing a deep, round, brick-lined hole in the ground. It smelled of damp and the dark. The bricks were greenish and slippery. She spread out the tablecloth and laid it carefully over the top of the well. She put a plastic doll's cup every foot or so at the edge of the well, and she weighed each cup down with water from the jug. She put a doll in the grass beside each cup, making it look as much like a doll's tea party as she could. Then she retraced her steps. Back under the hedge, along the dusty yellow drive, around the back of the shops, back to her house. She reached up and took the key from around her neck. She dangled it from the string as if the key were just something she liked to play with. Then she knocked on the door of Miss Spink and Miss Forcible's flat. Miss Spink opened the door. "Hello, dear," she said. "I don't want to come in," said Coraline. "I just wanted to find out how Hamish was doing." Miss Spink sighed. "The vet says the Hamish is a brave little soldier." She said, "Luckily, the cut doesn't seem to be infected. We cannot imagine what could have done it. The vet says some animal he thinks, but has no idea what Mr. Bobo says he thinks it might have been a weasel." Mr. Bobo? "The man in the top flat, Mr. Bobo. Fine old circus family. I believe Romanian or Slovenian or Livonian, or one of those countries. Bless me, I can never remember them anymore." It had never occurred to Coraline that the crazy old man upstairs actually had a name. She realized if she had known his name was Mr. Bobo, she would have said it every chance she got. How often do you get to say a name like Mr. Bobo aloud? "Oh," said Coraline to Miss Spink. "Mr. Bobo, right. Well," she said a little louder, "I'm going to go and play with my dolls now, over by the old tennis court, round the back." "That's nice, dear," said Miss Spink. Then she added confidentially, "Make sure you keep an eye out for the old well. Mr. Lovett, who was here before your time, said that he thought it might go down for half a mile or more." Coraline hoped that the hand had not heard this last and she changed the subject. "This key," said Coraline loudly. "Oh, it's just some old key from our house. It's part of the game. That's why I'm carrying it around with me on this piece of string. Well, goodbye now." "What an extraordinary child," said Mrs. Mink to herself as she closed the door. Coraline ambled across the meadow toward the old tennis court, dangling and swinging the black key on its piece of string as she walked. Several times she thought she saw something the color of bone in the undergrowth. It was keeping pace with her, about 30 feet away. She tried to whistle, but nothing happened, so she sang out loud instead. A song her father had made up for her when she was a little baby, and which had always made her laugh. It went, "Oh, my twitchy, witchy girl, I think you are so nice. I give you bowls of porridge, and I give you bowls of ice cream. I give you lots of kisses, and I give you lots of hugs, but I never give you sandwiches with bugs in." That was what she sang as she sauntered through her woods, and her voice hardly trembled at all.
The hit single for Robert Dopey, so I had to add a little clap in there for you. That was well said.
The doll's tea party was where she had left it. She was relieved that it was not a windy day, for everything was still in its place. Every water-filled plastic cup weighed down the paper tablecloth as it was meant to. She breathed a sigh of relief. Now was the hardest part. "Hello, dolls," she said brightly. "It's tea time." She walked close to the paper tablecloth. "I brought the lucky key," she told the dolls, "to make sure we have a good picnic." And then, as carefully as she could, she leaned over and gently placed the key on the tablecloth. She was still holding on to the string. She held her breath, hoping that the cups of water at the edges of the well would weigh the cloth down, letting it take the weight of the key without collapsing into the well. The key sat in the middle of the paper picnic cloth. Coraline let go of the string and took a step back. Now it was all up to the hand. She turned to her dolls. Who would like a piece of cherry cake?" she asked. Jemima? Pinky? Primrose?" And she served each doll a slice of invisible cake on an invisible plate, chattering happily as she did so. From the corner of her eye, she saw something bone-white scamper from one tree trunk to another. Closer and closer, she forced herself not to look at it. "Jemima," said Coraline, "what a bad girl you are. You've dropped your cake. Now I'll have to go over and get you a whole new slice." And she walked around the tea party until she was on the other side of it, to the hand. She pretended to clean up spilled cake and to get Jemima another piece. And then in a chittering rush, it came, the hand running high on its fingertips, scrabbled through the tall grass and up onto a tree stump. It stood there for a moment, like a crab tasting the air, and then it made one triumph. Nail-clacking leap onto the center of the tablecloth. Time slowed for Coraline. The white fingers closed around the black key, and then the weight and the momentum of the hand sent the plastic dolls' cups flying, and the paper tablecloth, the key, and the other mother's right hand went tumbling down into the darkness of the well. Coraline counted slowly under her breath. She got up to 40 before she had heard a muffled splash coming from a long way below. Someone had once told her that if you look up at the sky from the bottom of a mine shaft, even in the brightest daylight, you see a night sky and stars. Coraline wondered if the hand could see stars from where it was. She hauled the heavy planks back onto the well, covering it as carefully as she could. She didn't want anything to fall in. She didn't want anything ever to get out. Then she put her dolls and the cups back in the cardboard box she had carried them out in. Something caught her eye while she was doing this, and she straightened up in time to see the black cat stalking toward her, its tail held high and curling at the tip like a question mark. It was the first time she had seen the cat in several days, since they had returned together from the other mother's place. The cat walked over to her and jumped up onto the planks that covered the well. Then slowly it winked one eye at her. It sprang down into the long grass in front of her and rolled over into its back, wiggling about ecstatically. Coraline scratched out and tickled the soft fur on its belly, and the cat purred contentedly. When it had enough, it rolled over onto its front once more and walked back towards the tennis court, like a tiny patch of midnight in the midday sun. Coraline went back to the house. Mr. Bobo was waiting for her in the driveway. He clapped her on the shoulder. "The mice tell me that all is good," he said. "They say that you are our savior, Coraline." "It's Coraline, Mr. Bobo," said Coraline. "Not Coraline. Not Caroline. Coraline." "Coraline," said Mr. Bobo, repeating her name to himself with wonderment and respect. "Very good, Coraline. The mice say that I must tell you that as soon as they are ready to perform in public, you will come up and watch them as the first audience of all. They will play Tumpy Umpty and Toodle Oodle, and they will dance to 1,000 tricks. That is what they say." She not she knocked at they would dance. "I would like that very much," said Coraline, "when they are ready." She knocked at Miss Spink and Miss Forcible's door. Miss Spink let her in, and Coraline went into their parlor. She put her box of dolls down on the floor. Then she put her hand into her pocket and pulled out the stone with the hole in it. "Here you go," she said. "I don't need it any more. I'm very grateful. I think it may have saved my life, and saved some other people's death." She gave them both tight hugs, although her arms barely stretched around Miss Spink, and Miss Forcible smelled like the raw garlic she had been cutting. Then Coraline picked up her box of dolls and went out. "What an extraordinary child," said Miss Spink. No one had hugged her like that since she had retired from the theater. That night Coraline lay in bed, all bathed, teeth cleaned, with her eyes open, staring up at the ceiling. It was warm enough that now that the land was gone, she had opened her bedroom window wide. She had insisted to her father that the curtains not be entirely closed. Her new school clothes were laid out carefully on her chair for her to put on when she woke. Normally, on the night before the first day of term, Coraline was apprehensive and nervous, but she realized there was nothing left about school that could scare her anymore. She fancied that she could hear sweet music on the night air, the kind of music that can only be played on the tiniest silver trombones and trumpets, and bassoons, and piccolos, and tubas, so delicate and small that their keys could only be pressed by the tiny pink fingers of white mice. Coraline imagined that she was back again in her dream, with the two girls and the boys under the oak tree in the meadow, and she smiled. As the first stars came out, Coraline finally allowed herself to drift into sleep, while the gentle upstairs music of the mouse circus spilled out onto the warm evening air, telling the world that the summer was almost done.
Isn't that cute, my circuit?
A fun factoid: if you fall
Eh.
for 40 seconds, you will travel a distance of 2 kilometers.
Well, damn. You looked that up? It's kind
Yeah.
of fucked. Quite deep.
Yes, that's a 2-kilometer deep well.
Pretty fucked. That was the end.
Woo!
Here, Rob, I'll show you real quick the two we're voting on in the next few days before next Friday. Bobby and Dysentery are the only ones that weren't here tonight that have been joining. So, Penpal was the one. So y'all be voting on it in the next couple days. And then the other one was shit, Ocean at the End of the Lane. So the first option is by the same author, but it's his adult version of Coraline. Let me. Oh, do they not have the full summary?
We've
Honey?
read this one before in book club, haven't we?
And it's always fucking good. It's actually we
Yeah.
haven't read it for book club since what you may call it 20, I believe it's 2017 was the last time we read this for book club, honey.
Mm.
Yeah, it's been like quite a minute. Um, uh, I'm gonna look it up on Goodreads for a synopsis. Oh, why don't I just grab the book off the shelf and read the fucking back? Why am I being stupid? Okay, here you go. Good enough.
You want me to-
Um, yeah, you do this one, honey.
A middle-aged man returns to his childhood home to attend a funeral. Although the house he lived in is long gone, he is drawn to the farm at the end of the road, where, when he was 7, he encountered a most remarkable girl, Letty Hempstock, and her mother and grandmother. He hasn't thought of Letty in decades, and yet as he sits by the pond that she'd claimed was an ocean behind the ramshackle old farmhouse, an unremembered past comes flooding back. And it is a past too strange, too frightening, too dangerous to have happened to anyone, let alone a small boy. A groundbreaking work as delicate as a butterfly's wings and as menacing as a knife in the dark.
The ocean at the end of the lane is told with a rare understanding of all that makes us human, and shows the power of stories to reveal and shelter us
God, I know. Could that second paragraph
inside
be
and
more
out.
pretentious?
There's
Um,
darkness inside and out.
okay, here you go, honey. This one's short enough. I'll just have you do this one too.
In an attempt to make sense of his own mysterious and unsettling childhood memories, a man begins to reconstruct his past. As the games and adventures of his youth become engulfed by a larger story, he finds that it forms a tapestry of unbelievable horror that he never could have expected. Each chapter completes a difficult piece of the puzzle, or a different piece of the puzzle, for both you and the narrator. By the end of it all, you will wish you could forget what he never knew.
Yeah, so those are the choices. Thank you, honey. Anyway, Syrup, are you still around?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, give me like less than 10 minutes to take out the dogs, and then I'm popping on Dead by Daylight.
Oh,
Antonio's
okay.
coming back to play too.
Yeah, I'll
Uh,
hop on DVD.
oh, dude, you already on DVD. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I assumed you were.
I was
No, you
getting
didn't.
tired of playing solo queue, so I'm
Oh,
playing
shit.
Black Ops.
Dude, I can't even blame you. So accused ass. I played a little bit myself earlier
Dude, I
this
had a
week.
killer that felt so sorry for me because my team was so ass that he let me live at the end and like farm
Yeah,
points with me.
that's what happened to me too. That's so funny. I ran this Bubba really well in the beginning of that. I mean, I stunned him. I'm like, you know that back map, Vecna's map where there's that fucking